in Hartford. I was new to Hartford about 10 years ago, and somehow I randomly came across this posting, and me being the Budinsky that I am, I had to show up to this meeting and find out what's going on in my neighborhood, what's going on in the city. Back to specifically planning and zoning, the nails and tacks of it is a lot of what we do is under the purview of all things that are dealing with land use. So it's not a very sexy term, but it is a very important term. So when you're wondering why there is a local business opening up in your shop, for example, a smoke shop, a restaurant, bar, hookah lounge, school, church, you name it, it is because of the land use regulations we have here in the city. A lot of what our commission is dictated to do is mandated by state regulations. So those who serve on our commission need to have some level of, in a professional form, understanding of land use. So for example, I am an architect, a licensed architect by training. We have civil and structural engineers, we have lawyers, we have those who deal with data analytics and the makeup of the city, or cities in general. We have members of the Housing and Urban Development Department from the federal government on the board, so and developers. So those who have, on a professional level, people who are intimately involved with how our city is formed, both physically as well as the types of uses. I can go into a lot further detail, but I'd rather pass it on so you get to meet the much more interesting members of our panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Curtis?
Thank you, and good morning, and good morning to everyone. And I would like to say thank you to my fellow commissioners who are out in the audience. Appreciate you all for being here. My name is Curtis Rodriguez-Porter, and I'm the chair for the LGBTQ Plus Commission for the city. I've been serving for a little over 7 years on the commission, and we've been doing great work with ensuring that we are the liaison for the city in regards to the queer community. And we have been working closely with school entities such as Hartford Public Schools and CREC to ensure that youth have what they need socially and emotionally in regards to LGBTQ plus support. We've also started to take a look at what does it look like for our aging population and housing and the impacts of that, as well as taking a look at, what is available to us here in the city, what does safety look like for our public service members, and what is the training that is happening with our police department, fire department, things of that nature, to ensure that when they engage with the queer community, it's with the best intentions and in a way that is meaningful and community driven. And so right now we're happy to announce that we have recently partnered with the Health Collective to take over the city's Hartford Pride, which has historically been, put on by Charlie and Clado. And so that's one of our new partnerships that we're so excited to continue to partner between the city and the Health Collective to ensure that Hartford's Pride is just the pride of the state. And outside of that, we're open to all members who would like to join the commission. There's no stipulations in regards to that. The bulk of our members are Hartford residents, and so we just want to ensure that you come with an open mindset, an inclusionary vision, and you have the best intentions for our city and our queer community at hand.
Thank you, Curtis. Mrs. Nyesha?
So the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission is the commission that I've been a part of for a little over the past 5 years, and I got involved as a representative of Bushnell Park, and the way this particular commission works, each park in the city of Hartford has like a friend group or an organization that is affiliated with that particular park, and that friend group or organization has a representative that sits on the commission. You also can serve on this commission if you are just representing the city at large. So our makeup of commissioners is a little bit different in that regard. So I first joined the board of the Bushnell Park Conservancy, and we exist to make sure that Bushnell Park is well cared for in partnership with the city of Hartford. And like I said, each park, many of our larger parks has either an organization or a friends group that is carrying out that vision of supporting the city of Hartford and making sure that the park is healthy and thriving and clean. And so organizing volunteer cleanups, community cleanups, planting, maintaining different structures in the park. And this becomes necessary as the city's resources are stretched thin across our entire park system. The residents can participate in an organized way to help the city just keep our parks really beautiful. So that is the role of the commission, is to, in partnership with our Department of Public Works, who has this oversight over this particular part of how our city works. Department of Public Works, make sure our trash is picked up and maintains all of our infrastructure. And so that also includes our recreation department as well. So this big umbrella of like Parks and Recreation, this commission is in service to making sure that, one, all of our parks are accessible and there for you when you want to go out and enjoy your park, but also that there's recreation programming that is also meeting the needs of the community. And so we advise the City of Hartford's Public Works Department, the mayor and the city council with recommendations on how we can best serve the residents through our park system. So if you are near a park or a parklet, because that's the other thing that we're looking at is, does everyone in the community, in every community, have access to a green space? Not all of us live near to one of our major parks like Colt or Bushnell or Keeney. Sometimes you have a parklet or a little sub-park, and those don't always get the care as the other larger parks. And so we're always looking for residents who live next to those other little parklets, because they need a bench, they need a tree, they need someone to care for them as well. So we welcome all residents to be a part of maintaining what I believe is one of the best assets that the city of Hartford has, is our park system. We have acres and acres of beautiful land and recreational opportunities, and it just, you have access to so many different opportunities, and so helping the city keep this part of our quality of life thriving and healthy and beautiful is something that every resident can take part of.
Well said. Ben?
Good morning. My name is Ben Dubow, and representing the Food Policy Commission. And what we really do there is we look at all issues around food and the comprehensive food system, which is much more interesting than it sounds. And so we focus on everything from food insecurity to how do we produce in Hartford quality food. So urban farming, farmers markets, community gardening, food access, so certainly conversations often around grocery stores in the city and equity in food access, affordable food access, as well as food businesses. So it's really a fairly comprehensive look at food systems. And we also convene other groups that are doing this work. So we try to be the place that the different organizations, both nonprofits and city-based and public-based organizations doing this work and this advocacy can come together, coordinate a little bit, and really leverage these conversations in a way that's actually productive. We also sponsor throughout the year public conversations around these issues. This past year we were able to do 2 of them. We have 2 more coming up and planned, where it's an opportunity for the residents of the city to engage around these issues. And we put together an annual report with very particular policy recommendations that go to the city, on areas where we think policy changes can make a significant difference in the areas of food access, food security, and healthy food for Hartford. Our commission, like some of the others, is also made up of a combination of people who work in this area through different organizations, but also residents as well. And so it's really, if you're passionate around the issues of food insecurity, food access, nutrition, education, all those kinds of things, this is a great area to be in, because these are complex issues, often without simple answers. And they really do take a number of different people and agencies and organizations to come together to really make a difference. But here in Hartford, 1 in 5 experience food insecurity in any given year. That's way too high. And so we know that there are incredible challenges. We also know around food access issues, and if food access isn't affordable access, it's not access at all. And so these are all the issues we wrestle with and work on and trying to move the ball forward.
Thank you. And so while I have a few questions for our panelists, I encourage the audience and those online to think about questions that you may have so that when we get to you, you get a chance to be heard as well. Some of our commissioners touch on it in terms of how they work with the city and how the type of impact, but I would love for each of you to share a real life example of how your commission has impacted the residents of Hartford, something tangible that our residents can connect with, because oftentimes those who want to get involved don't see themselves or cannot connect to how serving on a commission will get at something in the community. So if you have an example of something that you've done, something you're working on that really touches our everyday residents, I would love for you to share that. Anyone want to jump in first?
So that's like an on-the-spot question, Janice, too. You got to sit up here and be like, okay, let me run through. Okay, so the parks that I mentioned, each park in the city of Hartford is unique in that it serves residents in a different kind of way. And what that looks like is you have something called like passive parks or athletic parks. And so in Colt, for instance, you can go and play a baseball game, right? In Bushnell, there is no baseball field, right? Like that, Bushnell is considered a passive park for recreation where you kind of would lay out on the grass and enjoy the sun. But in Colt, you can go and like be very active and do a lot of different sports in that field. How we care for those lawns are different. Like each of those lawns that I just described have different and unique needs. And so it came to the PRAC Commission. PRAC is our acronym for Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission, and that's a mouthful, so we just say PRAC, that the field was not being cut in a way that was conducive to the play of soccer and baseball. Like you have to cut the grass a particular way. And that was very educational. It was an educational moment for me because I was like, grass is grass, but apparently not. But there are leagues that play in Colt Park that brought this issue to PRAC's attention so that it could be addressed. Like we have to cut the fields a different way. And you could be injured if you're not on grass that is cut specifically for the kind of gameplay that you're doing. So having that resident input, directly being able to be heard by the crew of DPW, but having that dialogue that happened at the PRAC Commission meeting, because the other side of that equation from our Department of Public Works team was, it's not always easy for us to change the blades on a big mower, So we had that dialogue in the meeting between resident and our city government to say, well, how do we solve for that? And that was just one way. And I'm trying to think if we did get a resolution. I'm not sure if it's quite resolved at this particular time, but it is been highlighted, and hopefully, like the needs of the soccer field players will be addressed at some point. But that's like a real kind of tangible, like the way your voice impacts the way the city cuts the grass.
And golfers would agree that grass is not just grass.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question. And in some ways, it's hard to answer because real policy work and change takes an incredible amount of time.
Yep.
And so that's one of the things I'm learning in this process, right? That it's a very slow process, but a really important one. And so I know this past year, for example, we were able to host 2 different community conversations that led to some action committees and some real interaction with other groups doing work, and really the prioritization and understanding what residents within Hartford think are the priorities when it comes to food policy. Now that's leading to a whole nother set of conversations, as well as some advocacy that's going on. So in one sense, someone could say, well, has that really made a difference? And the answer is, there isn't a tangible thing yet, except I actually think that engagement itself is tangible. And that engagement of residents in these issues and policy issues really do matter over time. And we know that often what happens is we have to bring up an issue in the beginning, it gets talked about, it doesn't get acted on, it's tabled, but now we've started the conversation. And we come back at it a year later, and we come back at it a year later. And so I think the grocery in Hartford is like a great example of this, of one that now, for many, many years, right, going back probably like 20 years at least, and some of you older will be able to point out probably longer, but I feel like we're beginning to get some more focus. I'll say that, I'm involved obviously with a project at Fort City Works, Grocery on Broad, which is kind of an innovative small market that's changing things and causing some different conversations and leading to policy ideas. And so there's some interaction around those things. So I feel like there's some small tangible things, but the most tangible thing is really the engagement piece, which keeps it top of priority and allows the city to understand what the priorities really are. And often what we're finding is the priorities of those of us who live in the city every day might be different than what the priorities of City Hall are. And it's really important for us to be advocates around that and to raise those issues.
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on it, both of you, with 2 things. One, resident input. One of the biggest delights I find with serving on the P&Z Commission is invariably when people are aware of our commission is when there's kind of a hot topic of maybe some type of development that is moving into one's neighborhood. That's when we get the residents who come in. And I don't think I can stress enough, and I'm so glad that there's this forum, that by merely showing up and using your voice to express your concern is one of the most impactful ways that you can kind of help serve on this commission. My fellow commissioners and I are all residents of Hartford, but we also understand, like, I live in downtown, some members live in South Green or Frog Hollow or the West End, and as much as we try to be as expansive and inclusive in our considerations, having residents who are going to be directly impacted by choices made by other neighbors, by applications that are being brought forward to our commission, it's a wonderful and humbling experience for us commissioners of what are the concerns that are going to in fact impact our neighbors. So just by showing up to our meetings, so all of our hearings or our meetings have to be public and publicly accessible. There are means and ways to find that on Civic Web to do so, and I'm happy to talk to people after that because I know it can be a little bit tricky to find out when meetings happen and when there might be some hot topic issues. The other thing that you mentioned was about policy and also priorities. So one of the big mandates for the Planning and Zoning Commission is to create our plan of conservation and development. So conceptually, this is a document and an effort that occurs every 10 years to involve all departments of municipal government, all residents, including our NRZs. It's something that's managed through our commission, but by no means does it mean that the outcome is dictated by our commission. We are, for lack of a better expression, kind of the stewards of making sure that we as a city take an overarching look at how do we want to see our city transform in the next 10 years. So it does mean reaching out to our fellow commissioners, and I don't know if you see me taking notes, it's giving me reminders of like, oh, I want to reach out to these people because in our past plan of conservation and development, addressing food deserts, making sure that there are green spaces accessible, because what that does in terms of the health, both physical, economic, and developmental for our city is so important. So back to the original notion of please show up, even if you don't understand how the process is. And I understand as an architect having to go to other cities and towns to present in front of their planning and zoning commissions. Every meeting is run differently. The way we run our meetings is so different from city council meetings. I get confused as well. But being there to just understand and see what's happening, to find those opportunities to raise your voice, I know as a commissioner is so meaningful to hear from our neighbors about how particular, be it text amendments to our zoning regulations or developments or progress on our plan of city, our plan of conservation and development. It's a mouthful. We also call it the city action plan. You know, getting feedback from you, our neighbors, is so helpful, so important, and as a commissioner, rewarding to hear, because it makes me so happy to see people show up. I mean, we've had meetings that run from 6 to midnight. That's not the norm. I don't want to scare you guys from that.
Don't scare them.
You can always submit a letter prior to that as well, so you don't necessarily have to show up for our meetings, but we love hearing from you guys. It really helps us, you know, really rethink what we're trying to do and say. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Ooh, the LGBTQ Commission, we've done quite a bit over the few years, but I know some things that definitely stand out for the purpose of this question are that recently during the mayoral transition for the current mayor, we've been tasked with hosting sessions to hear out what it is that the folks of Hartford want from the city of Hartford, basically from the city hall, in regards to LGBTQ plus quality of life. What does that look like for youth homelessness, a place of convening and feeling like there's safe spaces available, things of that nature. And so out of that series, we saw gleamingly that the people wanted a space of convening. And so there have been conversations in regards to what does that look like, and most recently the support from the city to start to see what it could look like for the city of Hartford to have an established neighborhood here in our city. And so I know most recently that's something that we're engaging in, working closely with the city. That of course will be a huge uptake with ensuring that we have the voice of the community in regards to where it will be located, what is the makeup of the streetscapes, what types of activities, events, and place of businesses would be established in that community. So that's something large scale that we're currently active in doing. We've also been tasked prior to host community conversations for the hiring of the police chief. And so we've hosted community conversations specifically to hear the voice of the queer community and what is it that's important to us and our needs, again, with our public officials. So we've engaged in those conversations, and we've also had the opportunity to host the first ever LGBTQ plus mayoral forum, again, when the mayors were, put in their hat to lead the city, to find out what it was, what was important to our community, what were the needs of the queer community. And we were very excited that that initiative was supported by the city. And of course, the questions and things like that came from the people. So those are just some of the things that we have been actively engaging with to ensure that we uplift the voice of the city and to ensure that the queer lens is a part of the conversation as part of, folks who have multiple identities and intersectionalities is something that's very important to continue to uplift the voice of our trans community and folks across the spectrum for sure.
Thank you. And that question was not meant to stump our panelists, but they handled it very well. That question was really asked because I wanted folks to see how diverse the outcomes can be for different boards and commission. You can serve on a board and commission and have a result tomorrow, right? You can do things such as getting the way a grass cut changed, or you can do things that impact policies, that have lasting impact in terms of what our city looks like, what type of rules are put in place, what type of resources are available for residents of all different backgrounds. So I think when you're thinking about joining a board and commission, it's important to understand what their mission is, what they're trying to accomplish, and what that could look like. Because some people may not like the duration for a policy change, but they might want to be as active as, making sure that we have enough trees and the grass are cut, and there's policy involved too, but some you see in the results up front. So it wasn't meant to stump you, but you guys handle it well. So I want to change focus a little bit because there is really one of the most important part about boards and commission, and it's the people who serve. So my questions to you all is, why? Why do you serve, and why did you get involved?
It probably is very basic. It's like you respond, well, maybe it's not. I responded to a need. I responded to something that was happening. For me, it was an event happening in Bushnell Park, because that is my neighborhood park. Proximity, geographically, that's my park. There was a decision being made at the time regarding possibly moving the playground from its current location. And so I got a phone call from another resident in the same neighborhood, and she was like, "Did you hear they're trying to move the playground? You need to get down there, and you need to, and so I went down to a city council meeting, and I was like, "What is going on? How could you move the playground?" And I had an opinion about it, but from that led to then joining the board and the organization, because it was like, they were recruiting and looking for new voices and residents to be engaged, and clearly I demonstrated that I cared. And so that kind of is the thing. It's like, if there's an issue that you're responding to, like I was engaged, I was involved, I cared if they were going to move the playground. And so now I'm involved. Now you had my attention, and I wanted to, be a part of making sure that the park was operating the way that I think as a resident it should, and that meant the playground. But I think the answer to the question is just because I was responding to a need, and I wanted to go and help out.
Great.
Love this question. So for me, I wasn't born in Hartford. I'm from the Valley, Ansonia. And so when I was coming to Hartford at that time, I was like at Central, and I was finishing school. And I was like, oh, do I go to Hartford? Do I go to New Haven? And my now husband is from Hartford. So I was like, oh, I guess I'm going to Hartford. And so I came here, and I was like, how can I best learn what Hartford is about? And at that time, Hartford was going through some changes. And so I was like, as a young black man, I was like, especially part of the LGBTQ community, I was like, I feel like there's a niche for me here, and so let me explore and see where it takes me. And from being involved with the NRZ initially, like many of you have voiced up here, that then springboarded me over to the commission with the support of Kamora Harrington, who's definitely been a mentor to my process and my journey to just assist to instill the value that the commission has and the impact that the commission can have on the city, and also what that looks like for me being a Hartford representative and being proud of the city, love it here. You know, we've grown to have our homes here and raising our children. And so for me, I want to ensure that that folks within the queer community and our allies understand the importance of an inclusive community. And so for me to be part of that impact, and also the folks on the commission, definitely I could not have done anything without their support, and they're so dedicated to the city, and everyone's so involved. And so having that level of support even through the pandemic, where we were one of the very few commissions that still continue to meet and still continue to advocate where needed, really has a lasting impact on me. And so I want to continue to help drive change, help drive inclusion, and continue to ensure that our city is a fabulous place for us to come and have fun and be around a spectrum of people.
Yeah, I would say that there are multifaceted reasons, but similar. You know, I'm someone who, as a resident, I have lots of opinions and can complain about lots of things. But I've also learned that change happens when you show up. And so I think just being a responsible citizen of Hartford, I really believe in Hartford, and I believe there's a lot of potential in Hartford that we have not yet realized. And so for me, it's about learning how the system works, but also having a voice and being involved and being invested makes a difference. So that's why I serve on an NRZ, that's why I serve on this commission. I feel like it's part of just being a resident. The side part is it's helped me develop a real sense of community and neighborhood, right? Because I've actually met people and have become friends with people. And so there is like a selfish side of it, that there's a connecting piece to it. Mm-hmm. And you know, I don't know about you, but like there's that sense that you can live in an area for a long time and not actually know your neighbors and not really know the people that you live next to, right? And so by getting involved at the NRZ level or at the commission level, it's led to some personal relationships that have been really satisfying and make me believe more and care more about my city and about Hartford. So that all kind of ties together. But at the end of the day, change happens when people show up. And when we don't show up and all we do is complain, we're part of the problem. So I'd rather be part of the solution.
I wish I had the foresight to say what Ben did, but I totally agree that showing up is the key thing. It is easy for us to complain, but by showing up, you know, using your voice and follow through as well, because it takes a lot of that. For me personally, as an architect, planning and zoning tends to be one of many stops on our journey to realize something in the built form, be it a school, hotel, you name it. I've been lucky to have lived all over the planet, but all of my prior projects to moving to Hartford were large international projects. So for me, moving to Hartford was a transition on multiple levels of dealing with very local projects. So one of the wings of the Colt Armory was one of my babies for a while. I was also living there at the same time, and the firm I was working for was also a neighbor. So it was really kind of an entrenched thing. And that opportunity to get to know the city more, and I know when I moved here, having had the luxury of doing work all over the planet, seeing that Hartford does have so much potential, and being that optimist, you know, finding where I could best serve our community to realize that potential is what drew me first to historic preservation. So just to kind of understand the whole process of commission work, particularly when it deals with the built form. And then that became a natural transition to planning and zoning, which, you know, when I think of my personal professional trajectory, I never would have thought I would get into the details of what a POCD is and how does it get enacted to zoning regulations. I mean, that's really getting into the weeds. But it's one of those quiet powers that once you understand how much something like zoning impacts a city, so issues like whether or not a grocery store can be placed something is a zoning issue. So if that becomes an impediment, that's something we as a city need to talk to, and one of your first stops is Okay, are grocery stores allowed in this neighborhood? By the way, I think for the most part, there's not any issues about physically allowing grocery stores anywhere in Hartford. But yeah, it's that interest and desire to basically put your time and effort and your intellectual money where your mouth is of, okay, if I'm going to complain about something and I want to see something change, then let me put my time and effort to assist with that. So.
Okay. Great, thank you. So, you know, we're here today to educate and inform people about boards and commission, but we also want people to serve. And I also believe if you want people to sign up, you got to tell them the truth, right? So, time commitment. What is the time commitment is like, and what's something that frustrates you about boards and commission or serving? We got to tell the people the truth.
You know, well, I mean, there are some basic requirements that a commission would have to fulfill. You have to meet at a certain frequency. That's just a basic time commitment. Our commission meets monthly. We do take off December and January because, you know, who's in the park during those times? So that's just a basic minimum requirement. It's like you have to at least show up to a certain portion of those meetings on, you know, monthly. And beyond that, I would say the time commitment is up to you. You could go all in and, like, you know, there's so much and the need is so great. You could put a lot of time into it. But you know, it depends upon, you know, how much you have to give as well. So what's your capacity to show up? I chair the commission as well. So as the chair, I have a little bit more responsibility. So I'm putting in a little bit more effort of putting the agenda together, making sure that I am connecting with the other commissioners if they're not showing up. Or if there are certain projects that we work on and I need them to fulfill their commitments, I'm putting out a little bit more time and energy into that. So it really, I think it's an ebb and a flow. You could determine what your level of commitment is, but you at least have to show up to the meetings when they are called. Like that's a minimum. And I think the frustrating part is, you know, you are working with your neighbors. We're all people, right? And as people, sometimes we have good days and we have bad days. And so you're gonna get both at a meeting, you know? We're talking about issues that affect your actual life. And so if your trash is not getting picked up and sitting across the table is DPW chair or department head, you know, like you're gonna let them have it. And so the meetings could get a little intense, and navigating that, you know, keeping your cool and, you know, keeping the peace because you don't want it to be a bad experience. Like no one wants to show up to a meeting if we're fighting all the time, you know, that's not fun. So keeping the peace can be a challenge. I would say, because we're all dealing with actual issues that do impact our life, whether it is a zoning or LGBTQ issue or food. Like you are living out this in your real life, and that comes into the meeting. So that's a challenge.
Yeah, similar, I'd say, you know, it depends on how much time you want to give, but minimally speaking, we again meet monthly. You know, it's roughly a 90-minute to 2-hour meeting, and then there are some subcommittees that we do some work on and then report back. Some people are giving more time in that some of the events we do and doing some other advocacy, and sometimes that overlaps professionally with our lives. But I would say that minimally it's the be present, and that's also the frustration I experience, right? So people who say they'll be present and then aren't, right? Because it's sometimes hard to get things done. And so it does often fall into the 80-20 rule, where I feel like 20% of the people are doing 80% of the work, and we need more people to share that work. And if you commit to it, I think it's really rewarding and it's really good work, but we need you to actually show up.
So planning and zoning meets the second and fourth Tuesdays of every month. Mark that on your calendar, starting at 6 p.m. They are all public. In terms of preparation for these meetings, at a minimum, commissioners should be reading all the reports that are prepared by staff. So that's the other thing too. When we show up to our meetings, the agenda is pretty much set by what has been coming to the planning department itself. So for the most part, we are reviewing things like special permits. So whether or not a restaurant can have an outdoor portion for seating, if a new bar can be opened, if a hospital wants to create a adjacent parking garage in Skybridge. So those are unique instances that require a special permit. Staff, and bless the City of Hartford staff, because what we see as a commission is probably at best between 10 to 15% of all the kind of applications that go to that department. So they're seeing a whole bunch of other things. And part of how our commission is structured, which is not unique to Hartford, it's kind of a model that's replicated across the state and country, is that anytime there's something special or unique that doesn't typically comply with regulations, or I don't want to say comply, but maybe a unique scenario, or something that's been tagged that, look, this needs to be reviewed on a commission level rather than something that happens internally. So another good example is a cannabis shop, whether or not it's to sell cannabis or to grow it. That we have marked in our zoning regulations that anytime someone wants to form something that requires that kind of licensing, it needs to require a special permit, which when you hear the word special permit, it means automatically it's kicked up to our commission. So we review those. We review 824s, which is basically anytime the city spends a certain amount of money that affects capital improvements, we as a commission are supposed to review that to give it its okay. So for example, if the city council had decided to move that park that you had mentioned, the playground, and was investing a certain amount of money, and let's say it went through all of that, then it still has to come in front of planning and zoning to say, does that meet the goals and values of our plan of conservation and development? And we vote on things like that. So I know I'm getting, and master plan. So we review a lot of things, but first and foremost, all the things that were going to be reviewed has been posted publicly in terms of what kind of things. So those applications are posted publicly weeks in advance. Staff reports tend to come between 24 and 48 hours before the event. So in terms of commission commitment or commissioner commitment, at a minimum, you read those reports, maybe you visit the site. You're not supposed to talk and get feedback from other people because you're supposed to come into the meeting with a very open mind without a predetermined notion of how you're going to vote. So being prepared for the meeting, showing up to our twice monthly meetings is what we ask at a minimum. We may have subcommittees. So for example, our bylaws haven't been reviewed in over 10 years, so we have a subcommittee who's been reviewing that. To also, when the state was allowing for an expansion of the types of cannabis uses and affiliated licensing, Hartford was one of the first planning and zoning commissions to adopt regulations regarding that. So we had formed a subcommittee to say, okay, if we were to proceed forward with the expansion of these uses, how would they be reflected in our regulations? So between city staff and some of our commissioners, those regulations were drafted. So between staff reports, reading those, and attending meetings, you know, again, one's commitment can vary to those readings and showing up to the meetings, which can vary between an hour to 3 or 4 hours. Once we hit something pretty late in terms of a 10 to midnight, we may recommend to extend the public hearing to our next scheduled meeting because even though I'm a Nighthawk, I know not all of my fellow commissioners are, and it's tough for staff and the public to stand through those. And those staff members, they're not only going to my meetings, they're going to historic preservation, they're going to all of the NRZs, they are going to strategic planning or neighborhood planning meetings with neighbors. So anytime you meet a staff member, please be kind because
And they have their work day as well. So.
And they have their workday, which means
Thank you,
meeting
Jen.
grumpy people who are trying to get an application for and don't understand why it's not done. So
Yeah.
please be nice. But
Yes.
yeah, so I'm sorry, I know I go into details. Curtis, yes, is that, yeah, it can be a lot, but I find it personally very rewarding, and I think my fellow commissioners feel too.
Yeah.
The LGBTQ Plus Commission meets on the second Monday of every month, and out throughout the year there are 2 months, more or less, where we don't meet. Other than that, we do have subcommittees that are starting to really ramp up, especially with the conversation for the neighborhood, and then now with us partnering with the Health Collective for Hartford Pride. So those are going to take additional time, of course, outside of our meetings. And then we have, our support for policy and those on the commission who are interested in the policy work, and folks who want to continue to keep an eye on our youth. So those are our main committees that we have. So again, outside of our monthly commitments, which, to your point about folks showing up in quorum, is huge. And so, we definitely need the folks who do say they want to be on the commission to show up to the meetings for sure, because we do follow Robert's rules and we need that quorum. So that's something that's so important so that we can get the business done appropriately. And outside of that, we just really want to ensure that the folks are engaged and know that they're here for a positive experience. And then, in particularly, I just want to highlight that something that does come up sometimes is what you mentioned about meeting outside of the meetings. Kim, our staffer back there, shout out to you, Kim. She always makes sure she lets us know that we have to make sure we conduct our business at the meetings, and that is often a difficult task when the folks that sit on the commission, where you all live in community, right? And so sometimes that could be a little challenge where you can't help but chat about certain things. But all in all, it's a positive experience. I think that a challenge that, as part of the system for onboarding to the commission, is the process in which city folks are onboarded to the commission. And I do recognize that the city is actively trying to streamline and expedite that process. And so fingers crossed that we get there sooner than later.
Thank you all. I think one of the as someone who used to work 24/7, I think one of the things that I've heard from each of you in terms of the tight commitment, it can vary. And if you find something that you're passionate about, time goes by and time is no objection to you serving. So just remember, pick wisely and pick something that you care about, because you do end up investing yourself in it. We have a question from the audience. We're going to turn over to our audience member today to take a question.
Good afternoon. Thank you guys for coming and sharing more information about the commission and how it works and how we can become a part of it. So my question is for planning and zoning. I'm sorry, I didn't want to butcher your name, but Josie. Okay. So I have a question. So on the corner of Weathersfield and Bolton Street, there's a car wash. I think it's called Mr. Sparkle Car Wash, something. But anyway, I live in that neighborhood. So I noticed that they've fenced it around and they're tearing down the old car wash. Not sure what's happening. Do you know ahead of time what's going to happen? And
that is a very specific question for our commissioner. Are you asking our commissioner to have an opinion outside of a meeting?
No, I was thinking more in the vein if I knew what was happening everywhere, like maybe I would play the stock market or something.
Okay, so let me rephrase.
Yes.
Okay. When things are happening as far as planning and zoning in the Hartford area, you said something about they have to present or ask permission to to do things. So now with that, I'm assuming they did ask permission and they receive an answer. But when are the residents aware of what's happening?
So that is such a fantastic question, and me being a bit of like a Budinsky, as I mentioned before, I always want to know too. So personally, the commission, we don't see everything that comes through. So to quickly recap, and I know brevity is not my strong point, is when anyone wants to do something in Hartford in terms of changing a use or build something, there's a two-part path when it comes to planning and zoning. And to some degree it's tied to building permits, but that's another thing. So if someone comes and they've actually filled out an application to do something, there's two ways that application can go. If it's something that is okayed by our zoning regulations, that it's, and the term is used, permitted as right, which means if you meet certain conditions, which are typically setback requirements for the building, the use is not changing, the building form complies to what our regulations are, et cetera, et cetera. If all of those conditions are met and it's a permitted use by right, then that gets approved administratively, which means staff, the city department staff reviews those applications and they either approve or deny it. That is one route. If, for example, let's go back to that example on Wethersfield and Bolton, that they're not changing the use and it's going to be another car wash, that still can be something that is permitted as use, and it has to do with use law and case law, which I'm more than happy to describe to you offline.
Yeah, I'm saying not today.
Not today, right. If, on the other hand, that application is going to be changed to, let's say, a bar or a school or something of that is completely different, or they want to build something that might have another story or something that isn't permitted exactly by use, then that's when it starts to get triggered to review by our commission, to put it simply. So the way that our regulations are, the intention that they are designed is that to have most of these applications so that if you're a small business owner and you're just trying to make improvements and you're doing the right thing by having a contractor who actually applies for permits and whatnot, that you can go ahead and progress forward with your work. It's when you start to do the special things, like start a new cannabis business. So if a cannabis business there wants to go, then it gets kicked to our commission. Back to your earlier question, how do you find out? That's something I'm still learning in terms of there is information online for anyone, because it's part of public records, through the tax assessor's office, through the planning department. You can see who owns that property. You don't tend to see active applications, but it is a way to find out. But aside from just asking who's there to contacting the department, it's a little tricky through what is available online.
Yeah, I can also add to that. So one of the beautiful things about our community that many folks do not realize is that within every neighborhood there is an NRZ, a neighborhood revitalization zone. Hartford Next has poster, you can learn about them. At every NRZ meeting, and I know this, I was your former director of community engagement for the city of Hartford. So let me put that hat back on for a minute. At every one of those meetings on a monthly basis, you have representatives from the city who comes to those meetings to hear your concern and answer your question. That is their job, and if they're not doing it, you need to tell somebody. At every one of those meetings, there's also representation from the Department of Development Services. At that meeting, they can tell you about everything that's happening in your neighborhood from the ground up. So if there's a building going up, if something is being demolished, if something is being built, if there's a new business happening, they should know and they can provide you that information. If they don't have it on hand, they can provide it to you at the next meeting. So you can ask those questions at your right too. Hartford Next can provide you a schedule of all of the NRZ meetings. Most of them are meeting virtually now, so it's a little bit easier to to participate, you can log in on your phone and just listen while you're cutting the grass or at the park. But again, there are opportunities in your community to be able to find out, and I recommend your NRZ meeting. And again, if you're not getting that answer, you can certainly reach out to the Department of Development Services, and they should be able to help you with those answers.
So when in doubt, just ask Janice. She knows everything about what's going on in the city.
Any more questions? We have a couple more in the audience.
They're building another car wash there. I got it. It's going to be another car wash. But back to you, on the corner of Albany Avenue and Woodland Street, when they started digging that hole down there, we went to the city, and they wouldn't tell us anything about what they was going to build there until they started building.
So actually, I have to disagree.
You wasn't at none of the meetings.
No, I wasn't at any of the meetings, but I helped organize them. So for the last couple years, there has been meetings upon meetings held at the Artists Collective as the city decided what to put it. There's been conversation about the restaurant, about the moving for the city's health department. We had meetings with the neighborhood because they wanted more parking in the back. And so if you do go on the city's website, you should be able to see documentation of all the meetings that were held for the plaza that's going in at the corner of Albany and Woodland. It's been years in the making because one of the things that the city was doing was trying to find entity. They were trying to find a bank to go in that location. And oftentimes those deals kept falling through before it was solidified. So there are documentations online where you can find all the meetings that were held for that parcel and the development. There is a developer who's working on it. Their contact information there is as well. So I know that there were quite a few public meetings that were held for that parcel because I actually shared that information and we presented at the NRZ meeting. So if you also, the Albany, Upper Albany NRZ, they meet the first Monday of every month, and they have presented at that meeting as well. So there has been information on that.
When it first started, they didn't know it was a hole in the ground. They fenced it off and they dug a hole and they left us in the dark. I got a friend that owned that business right next door. He owns that business, and he tried to get that information. We went to the meetings. We went to the city. We went to city council, and they gave us no information because they didn't have a clue. Then once they started digging and started putting stuff up, that's when they started telling us what was going up over there. But until then, we had no idea.
I would have to disagree, but.
All right, disagree. Come to the next NRZ. That should be this coming Monday on Auburn Avenue, and you can ask them there. That should be this coming Monday.
If I could interrupt, and no one, back to my long-winded stories, when it comes to anything that has to come in front of our commission in terms of a special permit, that's when you see the very boring white with blue letter sign that says planning and zoning. It's very uninteresting visually to look at, but that's the required public notice. And trust me, we've postponed hearings because the person who is the owner of that project is responsible as part of their application is that they have to post signs signaling that it's a part of a public hearing forum. So anytime you're walking, driving, busing, cycling around, and you see one of those signs, there's supposed to be a notice with that information on there. Now, whether or not for your particular project, I can't speak to, but part of that whole hearing process is to make sure that neighbors can find out what's going on and show up to those meetings. So yeah, it hurts me to hear, like, if people are struggling to find out, and I know some of the systems are not perfect, and it requires a lot of digging to find certain things, you know, but it is supposed to be there. It's supposed to be in the newspaper as well as part of public notices.
Okay, hi. So this is a hypothetical, definitely not something that's currently happening to me. Going back to the conversation around the onboarding into a commission, what would you all suggest someone do if they've been on a commission and the chair has hosted no meetings and they have attempted to reach out to multiple people at the city and have heard nothing back. And they would like to participate in the commission that they were sworn into, but they have no means of doing so. What would you do?
I would volunteer to be the chair of the commission. No kidding.
So,
What
so,
do you-
so again, I'm not supposed to be a panelist, but so every commission has a staff person that's assigned to them,
Yes.
right? And so if you call into the city, they can find that information out for you, and you can try those channels.
Yep, did that. Yep, emailed and called.
And so were you able to meet with the staff person?
Nope, haven't heard anything back. It's been silence.
So you can go over to City Hall and knock on the door.
I promise you, after this meeting, we will find the staff person for you.
Yes.
Your other option is to join the Food Policy Commission, because we meet regularly and we're great.
And also, you can also reach out to the mayor's office. You can try the chief of staff or the deputy chief of staff, because they have some responsibilities in terms of board and commissions as well, so they can try. There is also, within the city, every commission is sort of aligned to a city department, so if you can try to find someone who's responsive, at least so that you can be heard.
So to that point, a little bit of like, welcome to dealing with all things local and local politics. Administration, staff, commission composition is constantly changing. I know when we have people who are peeling off or want to be involved, like I struggle sometimes to find the right point of contact, because at least for our commission, the formal process is for the mayor's office to nominate someone. So I might find someone who I think is perfect for that, to fill one of our spots on the commission. It still needs to go through a vetting process at the mayor's office. I know there is the online form to do that, but hey, I'm with you there. Like, I know that there's public information that it's a struggle to find, but it's, thank you for showing up and voicing that concern, because now you've met a bunch of people who are going to help you find that. But that's part of this process, is the persistence, because there always are a lot of moving parts. But I think thankfully Hartford is small enough that with enough persistence, you'll run into that person. They'll be like, oh yeah, okay. So we'll help you.
Hi there.
Yes?
I have two questions for Ben. I want to shout out Grocery on Broad. If you haven't been there already, it's fantastic. It's a good project, a lot of success. I go there at least once a week. If I could see a sprinkling of different groceries on Broads throughout Hartford, that'd be fantastic. What we do have instead of that is a lot of bodegas. And bodegas are fantastic for a central communal and cultural kind of aspect, but atrocious for dietitians. And I'm wondering if your commission focuses on integrating any type of information or advocacy work to educate bodegas, because they are definitely attributing to food deserts. And then secondarily, question if there's any action being taken to create a grocery downtown.
Great questions, and I'll be brief, and then we can talk more offline. But in terms of the bodega issue, there have been conversations about, both with the city and at the commission level, about ways to better equip. And there are some practical challenges from refrigeration and food code and how they're classified. Some owners have been more open than others, and some do a better job than others. And so there has been some conversations over the years, and I think that's an area where we can continue to focus on to help do that. And, just from the Grocery on Broad perspective, and I appreciate the shout out, one of the things we're very clear at Ford City is we're not looking to open a chain of them, but we believe it's totally a scalable and replicable model, and we will share out all the information we've learned and give people the starter kit and the business plan and who to talk to at the city and what the regs are and all that kind of stuff, and even help and consult on getting them going. I do know that there are continual conversations around grocery. A lot of those are happening at CADF, which has been the kind of taking the lead on a lot of those conversations. And I am told there's some progress, but we've been told that a long time. And so I'll be one of those people until we see something signed and happen. But I do know that it is a priority. And I also know they've been saying it's a priority for a long time. But I also know that the conversations are active. And from my perspective, and I think our policy perspective, our commission, is that it takes a a multitude of different solutions around food access, right? A single full-serve grocery is going to be wonderful for Hartford. It will not solve the food access level issues for every neighborhood and for all people. A dozen groceries on Broad also wouldn't solve it. What we really need is all these kind of solutions together. And so that's, that when we start talking about broad policy and food systems, that's the complexity of it all. And in some ways, that's what makes it interesting, but that's also what makes it really challenging.
Dex?
Hi, thanks. This has been great, by the way. My question is about budgeting. Thanks. City budgeting. Each of your commissions have staffers from departments in your area who attend your meetings, I understand, and are really part of your commission in a way. So when it comes time for budget planning and initiatives for the city budget, is there much participation with the commissioners, with your commissions on priorities or initiatives and what's happening in the city budget?
Yes, the short answer for our commission, Parks and Recreation, obviously is it has a line item, in the budget. It's under Department of Public Works, and so we have a lot to say. And we generally will voice things that we've heard from other residents, opinions that we have formed, looking at a particular issue directly to the department head as the budget process is underway of what we feel should be prioritized in the budget. Things like, do we need more equipment, or other various things. We will advocate for those things. But I also encourage all the other commissioners to show up at the public hearings. Don't just leave it there in the room, but go to the public hearings and voice those same recommendations and priorities. So we are a part of that conversation, always advocating for what we think should be prioritized out of the city budget. But that's kind of the extent so far.
So anytime the city is budgeting for any kind of capital improvements, so basically road work, school renovations, it does come in front of us, the yearly budget for review. It's an ongoing conversation about how much role our Planning and Zoning Commission should be playing into that, but it is part of one of the mechanisms of making sure that there's like another oversight means. Again, please attend our meetings if you want to pipe up and say something about that. What I think is wonderful through efforts of past staff members and the budget office, I know I'm forgetting the correct term, is when they are presenting all the proposed works, they are showing how it still meets our goals of our plan of conservation and development. So the need for better schools, or if there's a budget, and I wish there were, for planting the 3,000 trees a year kind of scenario kind of thing, that's when we would start to see those kind of things. But they do align all of those capital improvements to what is in the vision of the City Action Plan, or POCD.
For our commission, we fall under the Office of Equity and Opportunity, and so we are not allotted any budgetary fund from the city. So I just wanted to make note, like, not all of us have that connection to the budget. Hopefully, who's to say in the future, maybe, but as of right now, under that office, we currently are not part of the budget process.
Let's say for food policy, we're not budgeted. We don't get funds, but we do an annual report that we make recommendations of areas of both policy change, and that can include funding. So we do it at an advocacy level, and it wouldn't come directly through us because we don't have the authority to actually do anything but make recommendations. But we will speak to where funding might need to go.
Thank you. We have another last question in the audience.
Hi, so good morning. This was great. So I had like a similar situation to the first question over here in the back. So I'm more concerned about, is there like a connection between like the commission and the boards and like the departments of the city of Hartford. For example, Josie, if there's a restaurant brand new and they are having issues like with their permits that they are already up and running, but they can't or they're not allowed to, for example, play music, live music. So I got wind of that, and I'm helping them along the way because I'm such a great citizen here. But is there like a pipeline where the boards could help that, or is it strictly like you don't see that cross path of like helping a business owner that is established, they're new, but then they want to close because they feel like they're not getting the help that they need from the city level?
So for instances like that, that's not formally how our commission is structured or formed. It is something with, you know, hey, if you start showing up to these meetings and you voice your opinion and then you reach out to a commissioner and you're starting to establish those connections, you know, they're going to be more than willing to be like, yeah, let's figure out what's going on. I mean, personally, that's what I try to do is, if for anything, and this is what I've been trying to advocate more with my architectural colleagues across the community, is if anyone's hearing or is going through personally an issue of finding that permitting is taking forever, please let us know, because I know both there have been huge efforts under DDS, which is the Department of Development Services. Planning and zoning is one department which our commission works with. There's L&I, licenses and inspections, where building permits are. There's a huge effort on DDS to make sure that that the department is processing things as best and as effectively as possible. But that's also a two-way street, because I know I've personally witnessed that with applications coming forward, that applicants haven't been responsive or they're not answering all the questions that are being required. I know when it comes to things specifically to planning and zoning and it comes to our commission, there is a state mandate time frame for which things have to be decided. So to hear anything that might be languishing or whatnot, that's where, yes, to have those sidebar conversations of, okay, who have you been contacting to? And trust me, just because I work on a commission, and if, you know, I've emailed members of people in the past at various staff levels, like, I can't imagine how many emails they get. Doesn't mean I get to hear from them immediately. So it's all of like, maybe Janice knows the better person to talk to versus someone on the commission or vice versa. But it's part of that persistence level of, there are a lot of moving parts. Someone's changed jobs, someone's retired, someone is sick, someone's on vacation, furloughed, you name it, or positions are changing. So it's a lot. It's the nature of doing business. It's not a magic, you press a button and voila. But you know, with knowing people and getting to know more of who's doing what in the city, like, trust me, I want to make sure we're moving things forward, because your success is all of our success. Like, I live here.
Yeah.
I want these things to be good.
One of the things that the mayor has started is a one-stop. It's called a one-stop, and that's supposed to be the location where any business can go to and try to navigate the system if they're getting held up, et cetera. For issues like that, those are some of the issues that I've seen in the city all the time, right? Because you have systems that are sometimes often working together. And that's where sometimes the NRZs can be a good place to start, because while the business might be advocating to the city because they can't play music outside, at that NRZ meeting, you might have residents who's complaining to the police department who enforces the noise ordinance that this music is, and that's sometimes where you can reach a middle ground and actually go to the city and say, this is what we want to allow the business to do. We want this business to be successful, and then you can have an army behind you to get the support that you need and to get the answers. So sometimes you have to be creative about addressing the issues, because it's different entities who are responsible for enforcing and impacting different things. And I think that's when you start asking the questions, because the commissions can direct you, city departments can direct you, but I always believe there's an answer somewhere, and you just have to ask many people too. And there's still a lot of things in this brain, so I'm always willing to help. This has been great. I see my people are giving me cues. I want to say to all of our esteemed panelists, you have been doing great work. The most important thing that you have in life is time, and the fact that you're devoting to it. Josie, I just want to say from your commission, I want rooftop bars. I want more outdoor sitting.
Yeah.
Nyesha, I want some more trails. I want to see a trail along the South Park River Branch. Curtis knows that's our neighborhood. Food Commission, I know we want more great establishments. I want to bring back when they used to have that big farmers market downtown on Main and Asylum. But again, it's been great to be your host. I hope that everyone watching, everyone who's been here has been inspired, not just by what happens in these individuals who take their time up to be part of these commissions, but it inspires you to think about what you're passionate about and how you can potentially get involved. Our commission, we cannot just expect a few to help. Like, we need more. They need more bodies. They need more people to serve. You will have an opportunity to interact with some of the boards and commission here today. They are here to answer your questions. There are approximately 40 boards and commissions throughout the city of Hartford, plus you have your NRZs that you can serve on. So there is a way for you to get involved, and Hartford can only be great if we take the opportunity to do the things necessary to make our home great, right? It starts with us. So thank you again for allowing me to be your host. My name is Vanna Black on TV, but no, I am Janice Castle, and it has been a pleasure to be your host for now. So I'll turn it over to Miss Marion Griffin.
Janice, it's hard to follow you. Ooh, yes, in many ways. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And as Janice said, this is not the end of our program today, especially for those of you who are here. So first, let me thank the panel, Ben, Nyesha, Curtis, and Josie. Thank you so much. Thank you all for showing up, and even those of you who are online. We do have, for those of you who are here, you've picked up a brochure. For those of you who are online, we will make sure that we get it to you. And as some of the panelists were talking, things change. So we will also be emailing out an updated version of the panel, because people who are listed here to contact, some of them have changed. So we want you to have these so that you have a way to participate and join. We're hoping people are going to sign up today for a commission that you are passionate about. And also, please talk to those who are here. The panel. We also have with us Carrie Berman, who is the Commission on Refugee and Immigrant Affairs over here. She has lots of information. We have Jen Hockenhole, School Board, most important. We have an election coming up in the fall, as well as Hartford Land Bank, which relates to housing and properties, blighted properties, et cetera, and Martha Page from the Food Policy Commission. So please mingle. Now, and we also have Kim Taylor and Joe Lopez, Civilian Police Review Board representing that today. So please mingle with each other. We have food. And before you leave, I'd like everyone to take a survey. You can either do it with a QR code or there's a hard copy. And do you know your NRZ? I'm trying to give away these t-shirts. And on the back, there's a QR code, so somebody walking behind you can use their phone and find out where their NRZ is. So please, if you don't have one of these, please take them. And notice, it matches up with Ms. Vanna. So thank you all, and I would like to thank our funders, and our funders are Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, as well as Local Initiative Support Corporation, LISC, and Hartford Public Library for hosting us, And I'd like to thank our Hartford Next Program Committee and staff, and we have Frank, who gave us a great introduction to this program, Jack, who is a part of the co-chair for that. We have our executive director, Yasna Stannard here, and dear Janice. So thank you all. Please have fun, go have some food, talk to people, sign up, and we're looking for more people to join your NRZ if you're not part of your NRZ. And there's thank you all.